Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Premiership Quarter. Today, I'm going to be doing my round 24 and final predictions outside of finals for the 2024 season, going through every game and talking a little bit about why I think certain teams might win. But before we get into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and subscribing to my channel, I'd really appreciate it. And with that being said, let's get straight into the video.
It came up behind him like a librarian. Jesus!
So the first game of the round is between Melbourne and Collingwood at the MCG. And Melbourne are coming off a very, very impressive win up at the Gold Coast, where Jack Viney was fantastic. I think they got the win by 54 points, and he was a real factor to that. He had like 30 touches and 2 goals, which is very unlike him, I believe, because he's not a huge goal scorer as a midfielder. He likes to do a bit more of the defensive work, and he's now signed a 4-year deal to stay at Melbourne. And that'll take him to, I believe, when he's 34. So it's a not bad signing for Melbourne. I certainly think it's a bit too long of a contract because you just don't know with some older players. And given he's reliant on his body to be physical, it might not necessarily pan out. But you compare that to Collingwood, and they have just come off a 1-point win against Brisbane, where they were able to come from behind by McCreary kicking the winner. Lockie Schultz was very impressive as well. And a lot of the noise is going to be about them still technically being able to make finals, with them needing either more than likely Carlton to lose by 100 and then to win by 100. And while I definitely think Collingwood should win this game, it won't be 100. It shouldn't be 100 because even without Stephen May, I think Melbourne, given how they performed last week, should be good enough. I still don't trust the Melbourne key forwards, and that was a big reason why they won last week. Daniel Turner was very impressive. I think Collingwood should probably win this, given they're going to put everything on the line. I think they could probably get it out to 5 goals. And so that's why I'll have them winning by 33 points. Outside of Nick Dacos, there's not much for Collingwood, but no Oliver, no Petrarca for Melbourne as well. So it sort of balances things out. Next up, we have an absolute stinker of a game because Geelong are going to smack West Coast, given there is no McGovern and no Barras. Even though Geelong, I still don't trust them, and yes, they'll finish top 4. I believe they're locked in. Well, actually, no, they're not locked in, but given they're playing West Coast, they'll win anyway. They got belted in the second half against the Saints, and they're just not that good because relying on Tom Stewart as a full-time midfielder just completely weakens their backline, and it was vulnerable against the Saints forward line that has not been very good this year. And so they'll get the win, and it should be a comfortable one, probably going to be 40-plus points, but I still don't trust them for finals. It's just that they're playing West Coast, so they're lucky to finish top 4. Next up is Richmond versus Gold Coast. Richmond had about 100 retirees this year and 600 injuries. So Gold Coast should absolutely get this done, even though it won't be as comfortable as what some might think, because it's going to be like a send-off game for a couple of players. Grimes and Martin are going to be obviously the two key names, but you've also got Pickett, who was fantastic in the 2019 grand final, and it'll just be a little bit of a meaning game for Richmond, and Gold Coast have no reason to play other than to win. And I think they'll get it done anyway by, let's say, 3.5, 4 goals. Next up, I think this could actually be a very close game. North Melbourne did get smacked by the Bulldogs last week. However, they lost, I think it was Comben early on, and that sort of defeated them, especially down back, and Darcy was able to capitalise. Hawthorn are just playing fantastic footy, but they've lost Will Day. And for me, it's like I said in my tuck shop video, it's all about whether they perform in the second half without Will Day like they did in the first few weeks when he wasn't available, because they were putrid. They were 0-5 to start the year, and that was all of it without Will Day, basically. And so for Hawthorn, if they win this game and they win it by more than 5 goals, they can win a final. But if they don't, then they probably can't. And I actually don't have them winning by 5 goals. I think North had a bit of a bounce-back performance and really push Hawthorn this week. I think that it'll be a much closer game than what a lot of people predict, but I still think Hawthorn win. Next up is Brisbane versus Essendon, and Brisbane coming off a very unfortunate 1-point loss, and they need to win this if they want to secure a home final, because Bulldogs and Carlton can overtake them. And it's a lot on accuracy and selflessness for Brisbane. Danaher, Cameron, uh, Bailey, Rayner, they all need to be playing as a unit. I've always said that Brisbane's piece of difference compared to other teams is their connection going inside 50 and how their forward line performs. If their forward line isn't playing fantastically, they're not kicking accurately, they're not passing it off to each other, then they're not a great team. And that's sort of shown itself when they're not kicking accurately. They can't win some games because they start off really well, they don't kick accurately, they don't get reward for their effort, and then teams come back. And that's what Carlton and GWS have done in the last 2 weeks. Sorry, Collingwood, not Carlton. And so it's against Essendon, and their season is done. And while this technically is Dyson Hebble's last game, I don't think it'll be enough for Essendon because I just don't think that the Essendon edge really exists. And Brisbane should get this done quite comfortably because their midfield and up at the Gabba should mean enough for them. And I think they'll finish in the 5th spot. Sydney Adelaide. Adelaide won't have Rankin in this week, and that means everything. I think Sydney could rest a couple players. I think that they might come down to it because it's a Saturday night game. So there's every possibility where they do, in fact, make a couple late changes. I hope they do because I think they need it. I think Will Hayward could potentially be one to go out, and I don't think he'd make that much of a difference because Sydney are just that much better than Adelaide. Their midfield will go crazy. Their backline should hold up well enough. Rampy, McCartan, Melican should be pretty good. And I think that their key forwards could very well get over Adelaide again, like they did in the earlier match in this year. So Swans by just over 30 points. No game before Sunday really means anything, to be honest. So it's just sort of like yada yada yada, get through them, get through them. These Sunday games are obviously the big factors. The AFL like to plan it out this way. They did it in the last couple of years, and the Bulldogs are coming off a fantastic win over the Kangaroos, and the Giants are coming off a very good win over the Dockers. Giants have played in a few closer games, whereas the Bulldogs like to play in a bit more expansive games, I think, because margins are a bit wider. And it'll be a very interesting battle. The Bulldogs aren't going in with a defined rock because apparently Tim English isn't fully fit and he might not play, which will be very interesting. I think it'll be very important because Kieran Briggs could very well get on top. I think he's a fantastic player, and while he hasn't been as good as he was in the back end of last year, he's still been a good ruckman. I think he could feed their midfield, and that's probably the biggest battle. Can the Bulldogs midfield get on top, or do the Giants midfield stay on top? Because there's a lot of talent there. You've got Cornelio, Green, you've got Bedford now coming through there. You've got Kelly, you've got Callahan, and then you've got Richards, Bontempelli, Trelaw, Liberatore. There's a lot of talent in there. Whoever gets on top could very well push their team right to the end. But the key forward for the Bulldogs, if they kick accurately, will win the game for them because it's a windy place, could be up to 35 kilometers an hour apparently. And compare that to the Giants. Hogan's one of the most accurate key forwards this year that we've seen in a very long time. And that is really important in a game where accuracy could decide. Having someone who can be the most accurate player in the competition will stand out. And I think that if the Bulldogs don't find someone to match up on him, whether it's Lobb, whether it's Jones, whether it's potentially Bruno Karmas, who's a bit more of a physical player, I think it'll be Jones personally. If they can't stop him and they can't contain him, then they won't win. And that's sort of why I've got the Giants winning, because I just don't think there's a good enough matchup against Hogan. And this could be a fantastic game. I think it will be a fantastic game. And that's why I've got the Giants winning. But it'll be honestly under a goal. I think it'll be a really close game, and I think that accuracy will prevail for the Giants, where the Bulldogs just can't kick accurately to close the game, and the Bulldogs and the Giants just hold on. Next up is Carlton versus St Kilda. The Blues coming off a fantastic win last week against the Eagles, but it was all off Patrick Cripps pretty much, and George Hilt as a side piece. They were fantastic together, and they very well could have just saved Carlton's season, although they're coming up against a team who are in form. They've won 5 of their last 7 in St Kilda, and they just tore apart Geelong in a transition game, which is Carlton's weakness at the moment, because they want to make it contested. And like the Hawthorn game where it was in transition, where the ball wasn't slowing down, Carlton couldn't stop Hawthorn. And if they don't stop St Kilda, they could very well lose. Kerno won't be back. Mackay won't be back. Uh, I don't believe Adam Sard will be back, though I could be wrong on that one. It's going to be a very interesting game because this is everything for Carlton and this is nothing for St Kilda. And so, does Cripps able to perform as well as he did against a team he has not only struggled because they've got a very good matchup in Jack Steele on him? Does the Blues backline stand up against a team that can move the ball fantastically? It'll be very interesting. I think that the Saints have every chance of winning this game. However, I think because it means more, Carlton will win. But it won't be off the back of Cripps. I think it'll be anyone else. Literally anyone else. Saints will do everything in their power to stop Cripps. They'll put Steele, they'll put Stocker, they might put Owens. They'll do anything to stop Cripps. But I just don't think it'll be enough. And this is coming from a Saints fan. So that's why I've got the Blues winning by just over 2 goals. And then the final game of the round is a do or die clash for both of these teams, pretty much, where Fremantle are needing to win to make finals. Where if they do win, they get in over the Bulldogs, which would be a horror show for the Bulldogs and a fantastic effort from Fremantle. And Port Adelaide need to win to finish and secure a top 2 spot to where they can have a home preliminary final. Sorry, not prelim, a home qualifying final. Fremantle are at home. They won't have Josh Tracy. They won't have Sean Darcy. And that's very important because against the Port Adelaide team, whose midfield includes Butters, Horn Francis, Rosie, Drew, Wines, and Fremantle's been there. That's been their real difference, where they've been so dominant in the middle. If they're not as dominant, they're not going to win. And I think that Port Adelaide could very well score against a team that likes to play slower in Fremantle. But when they do play quick, they're fantastic. I just don't think they'll be able to get the reward for effort against Port Adelaide because I don't know if they'll have the forward options. It's going to be Voss, Voss, Amos, and probably Taberner, I think, is the 3 main options. And I don't think that's good enough. And I think Port Adelaide, even without Dan Houston, could very well get this done. And that's why I've got them winning by 10 points and saving their season and eliminating Fremantle's. So the 8 that I personally predict will be Sydney, Port Adelaide, GWS, and Geelong as the top 4 with the double chance. Brisbane, Hawthorn, Carlton, and the Bulldogs just getting in ahead of the Dockers and the Pies. And it'll be a very, very interesting final week of the season because so much can happen, but so little could change as well. But that is going to be the end of this video. Really appreciate you guys sticking around and watching. If you did like the video, please hit the like button, really support my channel, as well as if you wouldn't mind subscribing to my channel if you do like this type of content. But with that being said, I really appreciate you guys sticking around, and I'll see you all next time.